Here I'm going to start talking about some of our guard positions. 4 basic guards that I've come up with, and I'm sure there's other styles that have things synonymous to this. This is just what I'm calling them. The 4 guards are the strong guard, weak guard, power guard, and serenity guard. They pretty much do exactly what they sound like. Serenity guard I designed more as a meditative guard. I'll get to that one in a bit. But let's start off with the strong guard. We're going to be using, obviously, our reverse grip. You're going to start with it in your dominant hand. Have that same foot forward. Okay. Here. Keep the saber between, depending on how upright you want to be, saber between knee and waist height, whatever's comfortable for you. Okay. Forward a little bit more, back a little bit more. Again, whatever's comfortable. Something like this. Okay, this is more of what's called a strong guard. It's better for defense. Not quite as good on offense. My outline had them backwards. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the offense first, actually. From here, you have essentially 2 attacks that you can do. You can come straight up, or you can come around. Okay. Not really a lot of options in that way, and they're very, very predictable. What it is good at is countering. As far as defense goes, these actually, the offense and the defense actually kind of mesh together, so I'm going to be switching back and forth a lot. As far as defense goes, you're going to have some fairly good coverage of all 6 attack zones. Now keep in mind, as far as parries and blocks and things go, we're not trying to stop an attack. We've already determined that our blocking ability is weaker due to the dynamics of the grip. So we're trying to work around that, work with that. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be driving the blade quite a bit more. This is basically preemptively or proactively driving our blade and the opponent's blade in the direction that we want to give us the best advantage possible. As far as that goes. Also, before I do that, catching a blade at a right angle in this grip, horrible idea. Real quick, you can see if I'm holding it like this, I'm going to hold it this way. I can actually almost hit it out of my own hand just doing that. Okay, and that's catching it at a right angle like this. Trying to catch it that way. So obviously, as we already knew, the grip definitely is weak at catching or stopping an attack. But what we can do is redirect it. This is kind of a GEMSO principle. But basically what we're going to be looking at here is, you're here, if you have people coming in overhead, maybe you move, you catch it here, this direction, to cover your lower attack zones. You're basically going to be sweeping this way, coming here, coming here. And again, the angle of your blade is going to be very important as well. Again, this gets back into the geometry thing. Using it to cover thrusts, just moving this way, that sort of thing. Gives you fairly good protection of the 6 attack zones. Back, when you're forward gripping, parry to the back. This one's going to be similar. Parry, okay. And then you have to remember, parrying back here, again, your grip is weaker when you're catching it straight on, so you're going to want to use body movement to prevent that as well. And this gets somewhat into the serenity guard, and I'll get into that a little bit later, because that one actually is meditative primarily, but also is good for parrying the back. Anyway, the one thing to keep in mind here is, like I said, we're wanting to not stop an attack. We're wanting to move the attack offline, off center, off angle, however you want to put it. We want to move that attack just enough that it doesn't hit us. And maybe this is where my background in automotive comes in, working with transmissions. There's clearances down to 10,000ths of an inch. That's a very, very, very tight clearance. Something to be very close to something without actually touching it. And that's what we're going for here. If I'm trying to parry a thrust, it doesn't have to miss me by much to be a miss, okay? And from there, again, this is kind of going more back into the offense. I don't have a lot of offensive options just straight away here, okay? But what I do have is countering options. I said earlier, we don't want to stay in a bind very long, but we can use the bind. For example, if someone is maybe making an attack, I can use the angle of my blade to direct that attack and then respond with another attack. And again, not necessarily an attack that they may be expecting. If someone's doing, your standard attack, a sheet show, you're going to be coming in like this sort of thing. Okay. Someone's doing that to me, it's going to be coming in from this angle, about here. I'm not necessarily going to try and just catch their attack. That's not going to work. We've already determined that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use movement, footwork, and I'm going to move off the line, make sure my blade's angle is down. That way that even if it does catch and pull me a little bit, I'm letting the energy of their attack drive down and past me. And maybe I'm carrying, and this is what I mean by driving, I'm actually going to be moving my weapon with theirs to drive it in that direction. And then from here, depending on what they're doing, granted this is all dependent on the opponent as well, but come here, move it down, and from here you actually have a great opportunity for a pommel strike. Okay, pommel to the gut, to the face, to the shoulders, arms, whatever. Also, coming here, down, using the back of your blade. It gives you, you do have a shorter range, depending on stance and usage and angle again, but it's not necessarily a weakness, it's just a completely different dynamic. This stance, this guard stance, does favor getting in much closer than maybe a similar stance in a forward grip would. Here I do have a little more range, obviously. Okay. So using this stance, it is going to favor getting in closer. The other thing is you're going to have much more options for unorthodox attacks, as I was saying earlier. Actively looking for ways to attack with the pommel, with the offhand, with kicks, legs, throws. If you're coming here, if someone's attacking this direction, obviously I don't have a lot of options here. What I can do, rather than, now, the obvious solution is simply to back away. Let the attack miss, go about your life. But backing away doesn't really win for us. But someone who's using a big sweeping two-handed attack, getting in close, this is the same theory about someone with a whip. A whip is most dangerous at the tip. If you get in really close to it, it doesn't have nearly as much power. So same theory here. If someone's coming in this way, I may jump in and come around this way. Now, they're right here in front of me. I don't know if you can see that. If I'm here, I may jump in and around. Now I'm laterally, they're standing here in front of me. Their blade's over here. Arms about here. I have a lot of options here. Punches, pommels, coming across, or I can even step across, throw, different things like that. So again, we're looking for options other than using the blade. There's even one there that I've looked at using the false edge. I'll get to that later when we look at the Dulon. The other thing is this form and this stance, the whole form in general, unlike most swordsmanship, at least that I've personally heard of, it favors heavily keeping the blade down. You don't want your blade to be up for a couple of reasons. One, much higher risk of being disarmed. From here, if you try to catch something like this, it's just going to knock it out of your hand. I mean, I can almost do it to myself. The other thing is, if you're here and you do that, you're going to hurt your wrist, and obviously that's a bad thing for you as an injury, but it's also going to cause you to lose whatever fight you're in. So always favor keeping the blade down, which, again, kind of an unusual thing. Like I said, unorthodox work. One thing to keep in mind with your strong guard here, a lot of your parries are going to be very similar to some of the concepts that we've already looked at in different forms. For example, in Makashi, you may be here, and you can use your full moon, or I'm getting these right, I hope, or your new moon. Well, you're going to be using the same similar things: full moon, new moon. You're just going to be doing them in different ways, and the dynamics are going to change a little bit due to the changing dynamics of the grip. Again, this is going to require a lot more lateral movement than would maybe be obvious. And your motion really isn't that much different. If you're using your forward grip and you want to go into a full moon, you have to bring your hand all the way up. Okay, like that. You just got to do it. You're not going to be able to do a half of a full moon and kind of bring your hand halfway up. That's just not going to work. You've got to bring it all the way up. Okay. Same thing here. You're here. You're coming up here. Okay, you got to bring your hand all the way up. Now, the actual distance your hand's moving, notice my hand here is still in basically the same spot that it is here. Okay, so the actual distance that your hand is moving really is not any different. The difference is where the blade is and how the dynamic of that changes relative to what your opponent's doing. And then obviously your movement relative to what you are doing and your opponent is doing. So there's going to be a lot of apparent similarities, but the dynamics change quite a bit. That's one of the main things. It looks maybe very similar to something we've already seen, but the actual tactics behind it may be very, very different. Anyway, that is the strong guard. I'll go over the weak, power, and serenity guards here in just a moment. Again, thanks for sticking with me.